Hello, everyone. Welcome to Public's Leading Indicator Show. I'm Hope King, Axios' senior business reporter, and I'm joined today by Andrew Dudum. He's the co-founder and CEO of Hims and Hers, which is a telehealth digital health platform. Andrew, it's great to have you with us.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we're going to talk about earnings, but I do have one very important question I just want to start off with, if that's all right with you, which is, why isn't it hers and Hims? Why is it Hims and hers?
You know, my wife and my two sisters ask that same question quite often. The pace at which the hers business is growing, it encompasses some of the fastest growing categories under the hood of the business. Things we'll talk about today: weight loss, dermatology, mental health. We might have to reconsider that. We might also have to reconsider the stock ticker at some point as well. So I think you're pushing on the right button.
Well, I do wonder, just while we're on this, before we switch over to earnings, which just came out for you guys, is the bigger opportunity for healthcare and for targeting the overall population for you guys in the business. Do you see more growth in women's health than you do for men? How do you see those two areas?
You know, long term, I think the women's business will likely eclipse the Hims business. I think the reality is Hims encompasses some of the more long-standing categories that the company has had. This is things like sexual health and men's dermatology, and these are businesses that men know in this country. The brand awareness is extremely high. We launched hers just a year or two after originally launching the business, and so it's a little bit of a younger business line. But when you think about the categories, like we were talking about, things like obesity, things like mental health, things like menopause and hormonal balance, dermatology, these are categories that affect nearly every single household in the country. You're talking about 100 million plus women in particular across all of these. It's huge. And for the most part, the existing healthcare system, for better or worse, and mostly worse, was built by men for men. And you see that. I have two kids. I have another kid on the way in November. Even going through the experience of watching my wife go through the pregnancy and the labor, you see how it is built by men. And so this opportunity to build a consumer first brand, a brand that knows our customers or knows our customers exceptionally well, are delivering personalized experiences exactly for them at the stage of life that they are in, we think is a really huge opportunity. And it's something that only is existing today for a very small segment of the very wealthy part of the population. And our vision and mission is to make that accessible to everybody.
At what point do you think that'll be the case? What would be that tipping point, and in how many years?
I think we're actually making some meaningful progress. This quarter, we announced that the company is achieving, almost 2 million subscribers on the platform. That's incredible in just a few years since taking this business public. So we think we're on a path to be able to achieve tens of millions of subscribers in the next 5 to 7 years, and that's the ambition that we are going after.
All right, well, let's get to the earnings, which just came out, and this is a very big quarter for you guys. Revenue growing 52% year over year to 316 million. The primary driver, as you just mentioned, is the expansion of your subscriber base, going now to nearly 1.9 million. What's been the driver, though, of that actual growth in subscriber numbers?
Under the hood, it is this expansion that we are taking very seriously of a breadth of personalized products. When you think of, let's talk about women's health, like you said, a woman coming to us that is 23 and struggling with acne is a very different person from somebody who's coming in at 32 who's postpartum struggling for mental health, which is also a very different woman that's coming in at 50 or 45 struggling with obesity and also symptoms of perimenopause. Under the hood of what we are offering is customer segmented personalized products. And this can take the shape in form factor. We have serums, we have sprays, we have chews, we have gummy formulations that will soon be on the platform. And then also the actual formulations that can address you in both a pharmaceutical way and also a supplemental way. This kind of breadth of portfolio is leading to very accelerated adoption. We have now 55% of new customers selecting these types of treatments. And most of these treatments are affecting or attacking whatever the challenge is in multiple ways. This might be multiple medications or supplements, but that level of personalization attracts a ton of new customers. It also results in customers just being a lot stickier, right? Because they had something that was literally made for them. This is something that is hard to get anywhere else. This is something that on the weight side of the business, which we'll discuss, is a big deal. You talk about things like GLP-1s or oral compound business. When it comes to obesity, people want to have that titrated and tailored to them. And this is a capability that is really unique to our business.
Okay, so this 155,000 net new subscribers, how much of that number is being driven by people wanting to come in for these new weight loss products? And how sustainable is that growth, given that we know that there could be an increased supply from the major manufacturers of the pharmaceuticals themselves, and also maybe some regulatory pressures?
The weight business has been an incredible addition to the company. Without the GLP-1, without the GLP-1 medications, this quarter we shared that we would have surpassed 300 million in revenue alone. So the core business is operating extremely robustly. GLP-1s on top of it are very exciting. As you said, we're seeing thousands of patients coming every single day struggling to get access to these. And the reality is that we don't see that stopping. And so for the remaining future, we would expect the next year or two, there will be a really nice portfolio of options on the platform that consist of both branded medications, compounded personalized dosage medications, and also probably the commercially available medications, because that shortage, as you talked about, we think is going to be on and off for the foreseeable future.
All right, let me just be really clear. So the number that you said, 300 million, that was, can you just go through that again with me?
Yeah, 300 million in revenue this quarter, which excludes GLP-1. So we would have beat consensus this quarter if you even just take out the GLP-1 revenue alone.
So the GLP-1 revenue then is 16 million for the quarter.
That's correct. Exactly.
Okay. And if you look at inside of inside of your numbers, I noticed that you're still spending pretty significantly on marketing, 145 million in the quarter spent on marketing, which was about 45% of revenue and 56% of your gross profit. That share is a little bit better than it was about a year ago, but it's still very significant. Can you share with me why the marketing spend is still so high?
We just believe we are in the earliest innings of the adoption curve for this business. Like we were talking about, there are 100 million potential households in this country where they are struggling with a condition that Hims and Hers can solve. And they are not getting treated. And so when we think of the duration and the vision for this business, we're operating under a 10-year horizon. And so being able to, under the hood, deploy that capital, build that brand across the new categories like weight or dermatology or mental health, we think is incredibly strategic. And we know, and you can see this from the margins of the business, that there's room, right? We are verticalizing infrastructure. We're automating solutions. We're investing in CapEx for robotics. We know that there's margin room there. We know that there's efficiency room there over the coming years, and believe that there's a really clear path to that 20 to 30% long-term EBITDA margins. And as we move towards that, we're not going to be shy when it comes to investing in the brand and making sure we go after that big opportunity.
All right, let's double tap into the personalization, because you've used that term a couple of times now to describe how everything is being differentiated with what you're offering. I'm just curious, just to really tap into GLP-1s specifically. Are you thinking about this in terms of dosing? Ozempic comes in 0.5 milligrams, 1 milligram, 2 milligrams, and they all have different protocols for titrating up. So is it different when compounded and distributed in that way?
Absolutely. The personalized doses on the platform are built by and led by Dr. Craig Primack, who runs all of the obesity care for us and has 20 or 30 years in obesity specialty treatment. The personalized dosage allow the provider and the patient to mitigate side effects and optimize results. These are medications that, to no surprise, have real side effects. And anybody who knows and has researched these can see that. There's also a tremendous amount of studies now coming out where the actual adherence and clinical consistency of these medications is quite low. 50% of people stop taking these within the first 90 days. When you then look after a year, only 10 to 15% of people are continuing to take these medications. So the ability to personalize them, offset side effects, and often that is gastro, nausea, or vomiting, is really material in making sure that that patient can consistently get the outcome they need. So we're continuing to expand that breadth of personalized dosages. We think that's going to be really powerful for consumers and providers to have that flexibility and ultimately result in a much better clinical outcome for the patients on the platform.
So the promise of these drugs is enormous, and that's why we're seeing the demand and the lack of supply. But there's also been a lot of questions around the safety of the products that you are selling. Specifically, there was a very critical report from Hunterbrook Media at the end of June where they questioned the legitimacy of your GLP-1 supplier. They also criticized that it was really easy to get the prescription, saying it only required a 4-minute survey. I know you guys have refuted the claims in that report, but I do wonder, are there not some of those facts that, or some of the claims that they made, accurate in terms of, for example, the FDA approval status of the drugs that you're selling?
Yeah, I think unfortunately you've got a lot of players like Hunterbrook that have very perverse incentives, and anybody who knows players like that understands how they approach things. The reality is that the medications that we're offering on the platform are clinically excellent. We have independent testing, third-party testing. We have batch testing on every single formulation that leaves the door, and we have guaranteed confidence that what is being sent to consumers is exactly what they should be getting. We actually announced just last week that we'll be releasing to all patients who request it the certificate of analysis. And what this is an actual authenticity analysis of every single batch of medication that leaves our 503B pharmacies or our affiliate pharmacies that actually does a rigorous analysis of the sterility, the concentration, any bacterial growth or viral growth to give customers confidence that what they are getting is exactly what they should be getting. That level of transparency does not exist in pharmaceutical development. We recently brought on Cora Schultz as an example, who's joined the board, who ran Teva Pharmaceuticals for 5 years, the largest generics manufacturer in the world, and prior was the president at Novo Nordisk and was there for 20 to 25 years. Understanding how we can bring to consumers the trust of world-class pharmaceutical development is key to what we're operating under, and customers, I think, know that trust and they see it in the actions that we're taking.
Well, that's still different from being fully FDA approved, no? I mean, just want to be really clear. It's not FDA approved yet. Are you working on getting it FDA approved?
No, so compounded medications are explicitly not FDA approved. That is something that has existed within the compounding framework for many decades. What is FDA reviewed is the actual facilities. So the FDA approved oversight of all the 503B facilities exists. And then also the way in which they have to operate, CGMP, which is good manufacturing protocols. Each batch and the testing of that batch needs to be sent to the FDA. And so while there's no actual FDA approval of all of these personalized medications, the process, the oversight is incredibly rigorous and overseen by the FDA.
Are you hearing a lot of questions from customers about the safety of the drug because of that report?
We're not. I think customers are doing their diligence. By the time that they actually are getting to the point of wanting this medication, they understand the difference between a branded medication and an often what is perceived as a non-branded medication. Compounding is not a new phenomenon. This has been around for many decades, and many patients see and experience it when it comes to hormonal, menopause, pain management. And so the practice is well understood and well legislated. And so I think a lot of the stir is coming from the fact that, it's hitting the limelight, right, in the media. And I think a lot of people are starting to try to learn what this compounding thing is. The reality is this is a set of FDA exemptions that's been in place for a very long time for a very good reason. And in reasons like right now where there's a shortage, there's the laws in place to allow compounding to supply and meet that demand for this exact purpose.
So there's this trend going on right now that you're hitting with these new products that are filling the gap. You started this company back in 2016, pre-pandemic. You mentioned during the pandemic, as you guys were going public through the SPAC, that telehealth was was really kind of a proven consumer need at that time. And so you're kind of marrying into the business here, the rise in demand for that. But then with this, you do have people who are reporting these side effects, that they have some that they can't tolerate. Some of them, they're sharing these experiences sort of online. Don't you think feel it's important right now to also have sort of a physical touch component to some of these drugs that are still, fairly new to the market, to the mass consumer?
I think high touch is what is important. When you look at the existing healthcare system, overwhelmingly, there is no incentive for the provider and the patient to get to a great outcome. The hospitals are not incentivized to have consumers have great outcomes. The providers, unfortunately, are not incentivized. The pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, the PBMs, nobody is incentivized. It's the only industry in this country where the consumer is not relevant to whether or not you make money or not. We think about it very differently. And this, again, Hope, is at the core of why we're investing so much in these personalized dosages. It's not necessarily physical touch that is necessary. It's high touch. So understanding that an individual is starting to experience side effects, that they want to slow down their titration schedule, maybe that they're not experiencing the weight loss that they hope, that allows the provider with nuance to adjust titration and dose formulations. And then when you apply MedMatch, which we've talked about on earnings, our technology capabilities on the ML side to actually help doctors predict what is going to be best for the patient. That combination of technology and intelligence, as well as full customization on the pharmaceutical side and the dosing side, we believe is going to result in much better outcomes.
Well, do you anticipate just regulators stepping in to increase the requirements for prescriptions? I mean, especially, as you mentioned, compounded drugs aren't new, but telehealth is. So it's now easier than ever, right, to get access to these non-FDA approved drugs.
No, I think this is one of the things that is on both sides of the aisle, in complete agreement. Access to great treatments is critically important. I think COVID showed the world that you can deliver great healthcare digitally. And when you remove the barriers of having a mom need to take off work or to get childcare in order to go get an appointment to take care of themselves, you remove those barriers and allow that individual to do it from the comfort of their home, you can actually standardize it better. You can use technology and digital capabilities and data to make sure providers are delivering great care, to make sure that they're staying within clinical guidelines, and in some ways better standardize that care. So we see this firsthand within the platform that you're actually not only able to deliver equivalent care, but in many circumstances better care. And I would expect that trend is going to continue, and I don't see it coming back in the box.
And then I just want to mention also in July, the company acquired Compounding Pharmacy for $31 million. This now can make copycat versions of weight loss and other drugs. Then are we expecting for Hims and Hers to expand off-brand drugs?
You should expect us to continue to expand as we have in the last few years. This new 503B that we shared, we've signed the contract and will be closing by this end of the year, allows us to expand into a wide range of sterile compounded experiences. Categories such as hormonal therapy, menopause, all require this type of sterile medication and treatment. And these are categories we're very excited by. They're categories that affect tens of millions of people, are hugely important on the women's side of the business. And this infrastructure, like we acquired just a few years ago on the 503A side, allows us to enter into completely new categories. As you said, in the near term, what it will also allow is us to verticalize more efficiently and effectively our GLP-1 supply chain. This allows us to have more fluidity and a little bit more adjustments as necessary based on what we are and are not able to compound, whether personalized or commercially available doses in the next year or two.
And what else are you doing to ensure that that supply chain is safe, that you have all the critical, maybe not the approvals, but the right people in place also to make sure that this is safe for all patients?
This is our utmost focus. And in a lot of ways, this is why it took us almost a year and a half to launch this offering. What I've said in the past is we have no desire to be first to market. We want to be the best in market always. And our brand and our reputation is what matters most. And so this took us 18 months to bring to market initially. And you can expect with Hims and Hers that when we bring something to market, the efficacy and the safety is world class. That is why we have people like Dr. Patrick Carroll, our chief medical officer, Dr. Craig Primack, who runs Obesity, as all the way up to the board, people like Cora Schultz, who led some of the largest pharmaceutical companies, and people like Dr. Toby Cosgrove, the CEO of the Cleveland Clinic. We are learning from the best, and we're taking what we believe is world-class care, and we're working to standardize that across the Hims and Hers platform.
And ultimately, what is best for the patients? I mean, maybe this is a very stupid question. Maybe it's the right kind of question, but is the goal to really get patients off of the drugs, or is that something just that you'll say, you know what, it's whatever the customer wants?
No, I think the goal ultimately is sustained weight loss and healthy living. These are medications that are intended to be chronic medications that you take for as long as needed. I, for example, take Lipitor daily. That is because I have high cholesterol. For better or worse, I have tried to eat healthier and reduce cholesterol and work out more. And I got to the point where I was doing everything I physically could possibly do, and I still couldn't make that number better. And so now I take a daily medication, a statin that helps bring that number down. If I stop that medication, that number is going to go right back up. So I think you need a combination of really healthy habits and learning how to deliver great care for your body, and also, when necessary, pharmaceutical intervention to get you where you need. And I think with obesity, what is really powerful about GLP-1s is that it has removed the stigma that it is simply you being lazy, and that is why you are obese. This is a disease, and most diseases can be treated with medications. And so the combination of healthy habits, healthy living, and medication for the long term, I think, is ultimately going to result in the goal, which is a sustainable weight loss to get you to the healthiest outcome possible.
So you mentioned that, the new business has added just 16 million of your total 316 million in this latest quarter. Some analysts have suggested that betting on Hims and Hers at this moment, based on this offering alone, is probably not the right way to value your company, especially if the FDA shortages are made up, if production is elsewhere, making up for the demand. Is that the right way to think about your business as well? Is not that this is the end all be all, that there are other products and services that you guys think are the future, as we talked about at the beginning of the conversation?
Yeah, like we said, the revenue this quarter was north of 300 million when you exclude GLP-1s. So we would have beat consensus when you remove GLP-1s. That's not to say we're not excited about them, but the overall categories, the overall business is growing very robustly, and we don't see that slowing down at all. We think what's really interesting about weight is that the breadth of products under the hood, we believe, allows for a lot of durability and robustness in long-term revenue growth. One thing we shared this quarter is that our oral compounds, which are made up of generic medications like metformin and Wellbutrin, that business alone within the weight business, so it's a small weight segment within our weight category, that's growing 100 million in revenue just in 6 to 7 months. That's the fastest specialty we've ever had on the category, on the platform. So under the hood, you've got not only GLP-1s, but you also have compounded oral medications. You also have generic medications like liraglutide, which is another GLP-1 coming onto the platform in the next couple of quarters. So there's a really vast breadth of offerings, which gives us confidence that there is a durable revenue stream here within weight. And even excluding weight, the core business is growing very, very robustly.
And so just looking forward here, what are you most optimistic about in terms of your future pipeline of products and services?
I think we've just clued into this understanding that customer segments are where we can deliver better value. And we have the infrastructure and the data and the understanding of the consumer to actually deliver on it. The fact that the majority of new consumers are now buying personalized products from the platform, we think is a testament to our ability to deliver what patients need. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to see that accelerate dramatically. I would expect overwhelmingly the majority of the business to be a personalized business in the next few years, and customers to know that when they come to Hims and Hers, they're going to get tailored, custom treatment, unlike anything they can get anywhere else. And we believe long-term, that's going to result in much better clinical outcomes.
And just to round out this conversation, there's a reason why I always leave AI as the last sort of kind of segment of questions, because I do think that there's a lot of noise out there. But I do want to ask if AI is playing a role in any part of your business in either creating some of the products that you're selling, the drugs that you're making, or in the delivery of the service and the customer experience.
It's at the core of how you deliver personalization at scale. When you imagine a world, let's say weight as an example, where you have dozens and dozens of different offerings for consumers, oral medications with, let's say, 100 different dose regimens, GLP-1s compounded with 100 different personalized dosing and titration schedules, at the core, you need an engine to help the providers inform the best decision. We are one of, if not the only, fully closed loop healthcare platforms. That means we diagnose patients on the front end, but then we also are responsible for delivering the medication and following up with the patient long term to make sure they're having great outcomes. That data set, we believe, is incredibly powerful. We have platforms like MedMatch, which is our ML underscoring, which helps doctors actually indicate which dosing and titration schedule is best and why. You're going to see us invest in that a tremendous amount. We recently announced we're opening up a new CTO role, which will be the first CTO the company's had, explicitly with expertise on the ML side. And it's because of this capability. Long term, this is a data business. The combination of data and customer outcomes is what's going to power how we approach personalization and help inform the providers to make sure patients are starting on the right medication and adjusting to the right treatments as different things happen within their clinical outcomes.
It's really hard to categorize the company then overall, given that you're at the intersection of so many of these trends, but also that you're at the center of all, the delivery of drugs plus the service, right? I mean, how would you categorize yourself at this moment?
It's a great question. I think this in many ways is what the public markets struggle with, right? This is not a D2C brand. This is not just a technology company. This is not just a healthcare company, and it's not just a pharmaceutical company. It's all of those things. And so we think of this as just next generation healthcare. It's technology enabled. It's pharmaceutical, direct to consumer. It's empowering providers with world-class AI capabilities so that they can leverage the intelligence of every doctor on the platform to make informed decisions. This is just going to be world-class healthcare. There's all types of silly names right now, like telemedicine, which reminds me of the early days, like early 2000s, when people used to say the mobile internet, right? Now they just say it's the internet, right? They used to call every time you pick up your phone the mobile internet. That's what telehealth is, right? It's just healthcare, but in the future, people will understand it as the encompassment of great pharmaceutical development, personalized pharmaceutical capabilities, and AI intelligence to help those providers make great decisions.
I will say, as on a personal note, you guys are great at ad targeting. I don't know why I see your ads all the time when I'm on my streaming platform. So, whatever you're doing there is, I mean, I'm not the HIMSS part of it, but I do see the ads, and I do see the marketing spend. So, Andrew, it was great to spend time with you today. We have so much more that we could talk about, but I'm sure we'll catch up again really soon. Congrats on a great quarter, and thanks for joining Leading Indicator.
Thanks, Hope, for having me.